Hello and welcome to a special edition of Arch Eats.
This episode of Arch Eats is sponsored by Westport Plaza.
I'm George Mahey, and joining me, as always, is my co-pilot on this journey,
Cheryl Bear.
Today, with Mother's Day around the corner, we thought we'd ask one of our favorite restaurant matriarchs, and honestly, one of our favorite people, right, Cheryl?
Oh my
gosh. Let's admit that.
How long do we have?
Well, she's joining us in studio to tell us a bit about her multi-decade journey in the industry. She was the co-owner of Cafe Natasha, the popular Persian restaurant on the South Grand Corridor. But more than the co-owner, she was the restaurant's heart and soul. The food she prepared was its heart and soul, as her daughter has said. And both mother and daughter are here with us today. Welcome, Hamishe, and welcome, Natasha Bahrami.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So glad to be here.
This is going to be a love fest. We just might as well resign ourselves to that fact right now. We'll try not to get too schmaltzy and sappy.
Well, it's hard, George, because I do have to interject here. I have known these two. I'm sure you've known them forever. I think my first time meeting Natasha and Hamishe, Natasha was in middle school. She was running around their University City location, waiting tables and working the room. So do you want to talk about Love Fest, watching the two of them all these years? It's just been a thrill, and we're so happy to have you.
And it started a long time ago. Hamishe, you and your late husband started this whole dynasty downtown in a place called the Little Kitchen in 1983, but you served American food. You didn't serve Persian food. Why didn't you go with your strength?
Well, at that time, not many people know what Persian food was.
True.
And we desperately needed to make money because my husband was laid off when I was pregnant. Almost 20 days before I have Natasha, he got laid off and he couldn't find a job for a while. And we started, because I didn't want to go to welfare system, we started restaurant. And because people didn't know what Persian restaurant is, so we decided to do American food. But it wasn't just any American food. Everything was fresh made, fresh turkey, fresh roast beef, fresh corned beef. And then while we were doing it, I would make Persian food to give it to people while they get ordered to taste my food.
Yeah. You
Well,
think you like this meatloaf? Try a little of this, right?
Right. I said, try this or try rice, especially like when it was Easter holiday. People want to eat fish on Fridays. First time when I made fish with rice. And people came in and say, fish with rice? What is fish without the spaghetti?
Yeah.
So next week, I decided to make a spaghetti. And I knew how to make a sauce. I lived with the Italian lady in New York, and she taught me how to make Italian sauce.
And we should say, even before we go, that you all gifted us with a really good, tasty treat today. Speaking of spaghetti, you brought us some Persian spaghetti, and we couldn't quite place those spices. Basically a red sauce, but we found out at the end that there's a little butter put in there. There's a little cinnamon. I didn't really taste it, just enough to like, what is that? And then you finished it with saffron. So
Right.
there you go, folks on the hill. Top that one.
Exactly.
So thank you all for that.
Yeah, well, and Hamishe, I do want to back up a little bit here to set the scene for us because, George had mentioned, why didn't you start out cooking Persian food because that's your strength? You were telling us before we started recording, it actually wasn't your strength. You weren't a cook. What was your background and what was your late husband's background before? Because restaurants were not your thing. You probably didn't envision this.
My
was even a
husband
path.
was a geologist. He had master's degree in geology, and I was a surgical registered nurse in my country, not here. And I wasn't a good cook at all. But, when you need to work, you need to make it, you just do your best.
Mhm.
It's the only geologist become
Right.
restaurateur that I've ever
He
heard.
was,
Exactly.
actually, he loved to cook. His passion was cooking. Because of him, I went to help him. Otherwise, I didn't want to do it.
But you were cooking downtown in the Little Kitchen, and then 10 years later, after you've sampled enough people with this Persian food, you decided to open the first Cafe Natasha on the Del Mar Loop in about 1993.
Yeah, but right there at the Little Kitchen, We decided to put some Persian dishes.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, we put chicken shish kebab, we put kubide kebab. We did
My daughter's favorite.
rice, I made fish and rice. Every day I put some special as a Persian dish.
How was it received? Did people like it right
Uh,
away?
Not right away, but
Mhm.
well, for 6 months we barely had customer. Our sale was like $50 a day.
Mhm.
Nobody want to come in because it was hostage situation. Nobody want to support us. But little by little, they got to the point they wouldn't eat the fish with the spaghetti. They told me that what is fish without rice, herb rice? They changed their opinion toward my food.
And I just think, I mean, you and your husband, I want to say, were the hardest working couple in the restaurant business at that time. Anyway, I remember the story where you would start at the little kitchen.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you'd get there like 3 o'clock to prep and then get breakfast and lunch there. And then you'd head over to Cafe Natasha
Correct.
later
yes.
on, and you would stay there until 3 o'clock prepping. And Natasha said that they didn't sleep in order to make this work.
And
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And where was Natasha this whole time? I think that's a fun little
I
She was
story.
sleeping.
I would
Yeah.
wrap her in her blanket with her pajamas. I would take her to the restaurant, and I had small mattress for her. She would sleep there until 7, and then she would wake up when people coming in. Everybody say, "Good morning, Natasha. Good morning." She loved it. She loved that.
Did you start by bussing tables or washing dishes, or everybody's
No.
got that? They chained me to the dishwasher, and that's where I started.
There was such beautiful memories from the little kitchen. It was very humble when they started, but after a year or so, there was a line around the Paul Brown building for the little kitchen every single day, Monday through Friday for 14 years. And as a toddler, because I was a baby when they started that, but as a toddler, I would be wrapped up in a blanket. I would sleep there and I'd get up, and really it was almost like a hostess position type of thing.
She was such a good kid.
Oh, I'd learned that I have to be very quiet, but also they would talk to me. Before I was even old enough to talk, my father put me in one of those swings and he put me by the cash register. So when guests would come by this kind of cafeteria style place, they would stop by, they would enjoy some time with Natasha. But this socialized me in a way. When you say you grew up in a restaurant business, I'm talking crawling. And from the moment I was under 3 years old, I was working with them and doing whatever that was, and then put on the register and then in the kitchen. The rest is history.
There was no escaping, Natasha. There's no way you were getting out of this
So
business.
talk about becoming a foodie.
And you must have done so well that somebody named a restaurant after you. So congratulations.
They didn't tell me that. They made a decision without talking to me. So I got to find out what it meant to have a name on a restaurant. I
How
was
old were you?
13 when they opened Cafe Natasha
Oh,
Del Mar.
Natasha.
And they're like, oh my gosh, we named this after you. They came up with a name, Natasha. That name worked. So they said, let's just throw it on this restaurant, right? And little did I know what that really meant for the rest of my life. But I think it was some of the best years of my life.
At the time, were you just freaked out, or were you like embarrassed, or like, this is really cool, or oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah, you're a middle schooler at
Yeah,
this
I
point.
didn't
yeah.
understand.
I would think it wouldn't have been a good thing.
It was years and years where the name Natasha was not something that I was excited about. And for many years, I went by Layla, which is my middle name. So there's many countries and many places that know me as Layla because it was my only way to actually make my own identity.
You still answer to that?
I sure do.
That's a fun fact. We'll be right back.
The Porter Apartments are Westport Plaza's first luxury apartment complex. This modern community offers studio, 1- and 2-bedroom residences and premium amenities, including a resort-style pool, gaming lounge, fitness center, a pet park, and more. The Porter provides unparalleled access to a vibrant nightlife scene, including more than 10 bars and restaurants, and the return of Parties on the Plaza, a lively event held every third Thursday beginning in May. Visit westportstl.com to explore the leasing options. And now, back to the show.
So you moved down to your present location on South Grand.
2001.
It took a couple of years to open that. We
Right,
had a
right.
hard time with that, with all of the city restrictions
Right.
and obstacles that they had.
Yeah.
So I was 18 And I had to run Cafe Natasha Del Mar so mom could join dad at the South Grand location to get it open. So I was
Yeah.
running Del Mar for about 2 years. I had
Yeah.
to take on that role so they could get it open on South Grand.
Right.
And at this point, you'd graduated high school. You attended St. Louis
I was in St.
University.
Louis University, so I was going full time St. Louis University and running a restaurant full time
my
at 18. Definitely didn't have much of a social life, but I was a very productive 18-year-old. No trouble being made by me.
Yeah. She was really good.
And Natasha, you weren't studying restaurant management at St. Louis University. And I'm kind of curious to hear from both of you. I think that in the restaurant industry, when there's a family situation, there's either two different ways it can go. The first way is, you are my child, you are absolutely taking over this business, and that is going to be your path. You have no choice. Or it's, please don't ever get near this business. Do whatever you can to stay away. I'm wondering where you
Why
fell
did
on
I
that.
say that you cannot get into?
Mhm.
I didn't say you have to. None of us
Mhm.
did. Neither my late husband or I, we didn't want her to get involved in restaurant because it was the hardest job we could do. And it took a while for her. Even when we were Cafe Natasha in the loop, she hated it because she was always with me. I would take them in a restaurant with me because I didn't want them to be on the street
Mhm.
or go on the street play with her kids because I was worried about it. No, it didn't happen until I wanted her
Yeah.
to say the rest.
Honestly, I believe Cheryl can understand the sentiment when this happened. But in 2003, we closed Cafe Natasha Del Mar. I had been running Cafe Natasha Del Mar from about 2000 to 2003. And I could say with all of my heart, I hated it. I
Mhm.
hated everything about it. I would say it took a lot of my teenage years and college years away from me because I had to be so responsible. The moment we were closing Cafe Natasha Del Mar, my heart just exploded. I understood that this was going to be over. This chapter of my life was going to be over. And it was like, I fell in love right then. I was like, this is something that has been so much a part of me that I didn't realize what it was until it was going to be gone. And so that's where I know it was the shift from I hate this
Do I love this?
to I love this.
Wow.
And it
Wow.
was this pivotal moment that got me there. But I did need to finish my undergrad. I took myself into a master's program. I needed to push myself to do the things that were outside of this restaurant and prove that I could be my own person. Because a lot of people would ask me, oh, what are you doing next? What are you doing next? As if the restaurant business was not enough. You had to be a different person. So I had to go push myself. I went into foreign policy. I was working in many big firms in Washington, D.C. until I was like, this is part of my blood. This is part of who I am. And I actually approached mom and she came to Washington, D.C. First time she ever visited anywhere that I had lived. And I sat her down and I was nervous to say this to her, but I was very successful in D.C. And I said, I really kind of want to come back to St. Louis and I want to open a gin bar inside of Cafe Natasha. And
Did your jaw drop when she said that?
Well, no, I was happy because I was worried about her. She was working daytime, on weekends she was working in this gin bar at DC, and then she would go home to Maryland at night. I was worried about her all the time. I went down there to see what she's doing. I asked her if that's what she wanted to do. If you want to either work in the office 9 to 5, or if you want to work in a restaurant or bar. If you want to work in a restaurant or bar, I have restaurant, I have a bar. I support you, whatever you wanted to do.
And Jen was kind of on the cusp of a resurgence. It's not like you were chasing some
I definitely
crazy
wasn't.
dream.
Yet it really hadn't hit anywhere. And it was a realization for the years I was in New York, I was in Lebanon, I was in DC, and there was something in me that was like, I had fell in love with gin at 22. Like this was something that was in me, but gin was like my hobby. I actually had somebody visit me last week who knew me 10 years ago. And they're like, you really followed this gin thing. And they hadn't seen me in a decade and watched how much it had grown in that point. And so this was the pivotal moment. I sat there and I spoke to mom, and she immediately, she's like, you don't have to do what other people think you should do. You need to do what you want to do. And if you want to come back and do this, we're going to help you do this. But you have to come back to do it. Because I was flying in every 2 weeks back and forth from Washington, D.C. to St. Louis to open the gin room. She's like, if you're going to do this, you got to be here. You got to be here.
And so the gin room came about. It opened in 2013. And really, the rest is history. I mean, that has been an ascendance like no one has seen. There was a little thing called the Gin Hall of Fame that you were inducted.
It was very cool.
That's how far you took this. I didn't even know what the Gin Hall of Fame was when you were inducted.
I don't think you know it exists until you're inducted into it.
But you were the first American, I think, to be inducted.
Yeah, I think we're still the only American.
So
in
talk
the Gin
about
Hall
that a
of
little
Fame.
bit, because when I go around the country and talk to people about gin, they all know about you. They all know about the gin room. This is not just this thing that St. Louis has. You're known throughout the country. And I don't know if it's because of the Gin Hall of Fame or you're preaching the gospel of gin abroad, which you do here and abroad. Am I painting that too?
You're painting it pretty well, but if anyone has met my mother or my father over these years, and many people have because Cafe Natasha was quite a household name in St. Louis, I've never seen more hardworking people. They overcame so many obstacles that I don't know how they did it. But whether I realized it or not, I learned deeply that I'm not good at giving up. If I have something, I put my mind to it all the way, and I want to go all the way, whether I know what that is or not. And my goal was to help people understand this very mysterious category of gin. It is one of the largest range and spectrums of flavors of any spirit category. So it's like, okay, there's gin, there's these gins, but you don't realize that it can be flavors from a tomato distilled gin to running through a flower field to running through a forest with your mouth open. But what I learned was that I can't have an obstacle of, you live in St. Louis, Missouri. This is a beer and bourbon town, right? No one's drinking gin. I understand that no one's drinking gin. Isn't that a void? Isn't that something that you could lean into? And so what we did is we became very education forward. So when someone would come into Cafe Natasha, this Persian restaurant, again, another obstacle kind of against us, except everyone was in love with it, and coming in, like George Mayhew walking in and asking for an old fashioned. Heard, sir, I would love to make you an old fashioned. Would you allow me to try and make you a gin old fashioned with a rye distilled gin? And we slowly gained the trust of guests. And so what we did was we created a community here in St. Louis that fell in love with the spirit. And we said, if we did this in Bumblebutt, St. Louis, Missouri, which is my favorite positive word about St. Louis, we could do this in other smaller cities around the United States. And that's what we did.
I want to add something. When people told her that this is bourbon and beer city,
Right.
she came to me. She said, Mom, you think it's going to work out? I said, look, we opened Persian restaurant. People had no idea what Persian food was. They only knew Italian and Mexican, some Chinese. We made it. Put your heart to it. You're going to make it too.
So
I'm wondering how it felt to have her back and watch all of this unfold. Was that just, was your
Remember
heart
what you
just so
said to me?
full?
When you came to one of the first gin festivals and made me cry?
That wasn't first. We had the first, second one in our restaurant, but third gin festival was someplace else. Huge place. And I went in there and I saw my little girl is giving this speech to everybody, telling all the guys what to do
right.
before festival is started. When I saw that one, I was so proud. So I started crying and I gave her a hug. I said, honey, I'm so proud of you. And then she said, Mom, don't cry. I'm going to cry too. Every time it happens, I go there, I just watch her. She's telling people what to do. It's so amazing that she knows, I don't know how to put this.
Dad would say the art of the bullshit. I'm very good at the art of the
So
bullshit.
you're knowledgeable. You know everything about gin, and when you talk, everybody just listen to you.
Guess
That's
who
And,
I
and
guess
like
who I learned.
and like I said, it's known throughout the country, and also the James
Right.
Beard folks took
Yeah.
notice in
Mhm.
2023
And
when
25.
Yeah.
yes, the gin room was nominated in
23.
23 for best spirits selection, and in 2025 recently finalist for outstanding professional in beverage service, which is a new category, a broader category. It's a big deal to be on that list.
We are the
The-
center of gin in the United States, right here in St. Louis. That is something that you can say with confidence.
like I said, everybody knows it, and it's because of you.
There's anything for anyone. So it's just being open about what you enjoy. Isn't that the same for restaurants, right? You walk into a restaurant in St. Louis is known for such a range of ethnic cuisines,
Mhm.
right? Not only are they ethnic cuisines, they're made by the moms of St. Louis. They're made by the generations, right? Even the South Grand Strip that we are in used to have more ethnicities than Epcot Center. And it really was the mom and pop places that were doing these. You can walk into them and you're like, I'm kind of new here.
Mhm.
Can you help me through it? And that is the charm of cities our size. We have Midwest hospitality to want to introduce people to new things. And so that's what we love to do.
And speaking of new things, I'm curious about what it was like handing over the reins, retiring. Was it handing over the reins? I don't even know if you'd call it that. How did that come about? Because you have devoted your entire life, pretty much, at least your entire adult life, to this business. And George and I were actually both just laughing that you're reverse aging. You know, every time we see you, you look younger. It's a testament to getting out of the business,
Yeah,
right?
I want to retire right now.
I know. But I'm just wondering, like, how did that decision come about? How did the two of you, because I'm sure there were a lot of discussions about it. I think you, Natasha, probably given her a push.
Didn't matter if we
Okay.
didn't find a
was ready.
solution.
I was
She was ready. She was working 16 hours a day. We had just gotten on the eater list. Thank you, Miss Holly. But Cafe Natasha had landed on many lists and was like, we were the busiest we've ever been at that point. And she was working, I mean, literally 16 hours a day. And I could see what that was doing to her. And we were at 39 years. That is a long time to be doing it. We made it through the pandemic. We made it through 9/11. We made it through all these things. But deep in my heart, 5 years before that, 10 years before that, they had wanted to retire. And my father, though he retired, he really didn't get to enjoy life the way he deserved to do. So I said I wanted to learn from that. And whatever we had to do, it was time to allow her to live life, not do it until she couldn't do it anymore. Mom and I had made a decision that when she was done, we were going to be done with Cafe Natasha because without her touch, without Dad's touch, it is not the same. And Cheryl will know that more than anybody else,
Oh, yes.
that there's a special magic to moms.
Oh, yes. That's so understandable. I mean,
But-
she's the
That's
secret
how
sauce.
it was when we closed Little Kitchen downtown. For so many months, people would come outside their office. They stay on the street. They didn't know where to go to eat.
And I remember when you closed Cafe Natasha, it was in conjunction with the Persian New Year. You had like a 5-week grand closing. And I really think I was there on the last night or two. I remember
Oh,
walking
gosh.
in there, and it was a long, slow goodbye, and it was a 5-week party. But like you said, Natasha, what are we going to do now? You did not want to, like, let's do it again with another chef who would be recreating or trying to recreate mom's dishes. That wouldn't be fair to anybody. So let's just wipe the slate clean and do something else. And Salve Osteria was the result.
Yeah, my husband Mike, who was been a chef for 15 years
Right.
and obviously was more attuned to the chef world there.
And this is Mike Fricker.
Michael
We should-
Fricker, who
yeah.
owns Monstera Mezcaleria and New Society. And he's still a young man. And he was out later one evening, and Matt Wynn, who is our partner and chef at Salve Osteria, was also out later. I'm talking, I got a phone call at 3 in the morning, a deep, excited phone call at 3 in the morning, said, I think I found it. I think I found our partner. And I said, I believe you. Now, why don't we come home and we can discuss it in the
Yeah.
After a nice sleep and some coffee, maybe.
And it happened very quickly from then, but we actually had a meeting with Matt and Mike and all of us. And then I personally went and I spoke to mom and I said, look, I don't know if this is something that's actually going to happen, but I wanted to talk to you and ask you, are you ready for this? If we found somebody to move this forward without Cafe Natasha, are you mentally ready to step back from this? And I think her immediate response was yes, but I don't know if that was really how it felt. But
No, it wasn't. But then when that month, I cooked every day. Oh gosh, more than any other time.
You mean the last month? Yeah.
The last one, the
You were
people.
ready after that
Oh,
for sure.
The week before last, I was so exhausted. I called her. It was Saturday night. I said, Tasha, I quit.
she quit before the last week. And I told her, okay. And then as soon as
No, Tasha said, Mom, you cannot quit right now. One more week. I said, I can't take this, man. People were buying. They would eat one day and they would take 4 or 5 home.
oh my gosh,
Made it even worse.
she was doing a
That was
case of beef
worse.
and
Every-
chicken every
every
single
day.
day.
Yeah.
She was doing
Every
40
day.
pounds of falafel a day. And we
Every
were
day.
doing it. We had no staff
I-
either.
The 16-hour days became 20-hour days.
It was so much. I was so excited. It's going to be the last day. The Sunday when she had the big party, I was in heaven.
And at that time, you said, I'm going to take time to travel and to do more
And I
painting.
did.
And I didn't know,
I did.
did both of those things happen?
Yeah, I'm doing both of them. Yes.
She's living her life.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is what's really integral. Hamish has spent her life being St. Louis's mom. And it's a fact. Everyone who had worked for her over all of the years came through. I don't care
They
where
came
they
through, yeah.
lived. They flew back into St. Louis to hug her, eat her food one more time. Most of the times when you leave a restaurant, you're not trying to come back there, especially in these times. But they were so connected to who she was. They all had stories how she changed their lives or how she pushed their trajectory and was very influential on who they had become, that they all flew back for this. And now that she is not in this role, she's somehow still been able to keep this mother figure in different ways. She loves the little ones, so she's still there to pick up the little babies, and especially since her own daughter only has a grand puppy. So she's been able to continue this part of her that she loves, because when they had me, my father got laid off. Her family is 9 children, and she was a surgical nurse to a gynecologist. So she was delivering her own mother's babies.
Oh my gosh.
She loves
my-
children, and
My
she
older
didn't
sister, yeah.
she didn't get a chance to have more children. So she adopted humans along the way. And I had to, at an early age, understand that there was going to be many people who needed her to be their mom in a way that was integral to their lives. And I learned to accept that in a way. So I was used to sharing her. Yet there was something special between her and I, to the point she defended me over anyone else at any time, even though I was sometimes a shit. So it was really cool to watch this. And I think that this has leaned into my own hospitality in life, being somebody who cares about what's happening rather than just the end point of what is happening. And so these are a lot of things that I learned from my mother when they left to go open Cafe Natasha on South Grand. I was 18, 19. I sat there one day and I said, I wish I could be more like her and take those kind of natural vibes that she had to make things better. And somehow I think I kind of manifested that. I can't necessarily be her. She has a motherly quality that I haven't fully told, but I think when people say that this is hospitality or you embrace people, it's definitely come from those experiences.
Do you still go back to Salve Osteria in the gin room and just hang out a little bit and
I
kiss
want to
some
eat.
babies?
I want to eat free food. Yes.
I want the free food.
And she actually still contributes.
yeah.
We decided not to fully reinvent the wheel on one of the things, but right before she joined us today, she dropped off the famous beef shish kebab lamb sauce that Matt uses on his famous lamb chops as well. So she still somewhat contributes, but she still hasn't shared that recipe
Yeah.
at all.
Like one of these days, because I know where you live, I'm going to follow you and I'm going
How you
to
gonna
take the
find
bowl.
that?
Well, I
How
know
you
you won't
gonna
give me the
find that?
recipe, but I'm going to steal the
She's
bowl
gonna
of the
snatch.
marinade and I'm going to snatch it and,
okay.
and
She'll
take
make
it home.
another
for
one.
you. I'll make it
Exactly,
for you.
yeah.
It's on live.
It's on
air.
record. We have this on
No, I'll
record.
make it for you. And I'm not going to give you recipe.
course
but
not.
I'll give it to you.
Well, anyone who knows you knows better than to ask.
The customer asked me for it and said, well, for me to know, for you to eat.
No, it's more closely guarded than the Coca-Cola recipe.
I think when you closed, you were going to go back to Iran, was it?
I was going to, but then I decided not to because situation over there, it wasn't good. I went
She
other
fell in love with
places.
Paris.
my
She fell in love
God.
with Italy.
Oh
So
my
she's
God.
quite the world traveler, regardless.
Paris was the best vacation I ever had. It was fantastic.
She enjoys being spoiled. So if anyone would like to spoil her as well, she's taking candidates.
Do you paint while you're on vacation?
Oh, I can't. You can't carry your stuff with you.
Yeah, that's true.
But you bring back inspiration and you
Yeah,
paint.
I come back.
take
Yeah,
pictures
I
and
learned.
paint.
I went with a friend of mine who's an artist. I learned from him to do better on my painting.
See, I'm learning about retirement. Eventually, I'll get
Yes,
there.
you
But it
should.
may
George, you're
not-
not allowed to
It's-
do
but I
this. You
think
do know.
restaurant
It's
people
fantastic.
don't ever really retire. You're never going to get this hospitality
It's
thing
fan-
out of your system.
Oh, she
I
still
do
hosts
at
all the time.
home, my house. Friends come in, I cook for them, or friends call me, I just made food. I say, would you like to come and join with me?
Mm-hmm.
Have a lunch with?
It's part
I
of who
see.
she is.
Yeah, you can
Hospitality
come
is
whenever
full
you
in her
want.
veins.
I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I could enjoy my life.
Mom loves going to the restaurants all over St.
yeah.
Louis too. Whoever's willing to spoil her, she's
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, I think we have like a little date thing, and that's a good segue because we have a couple fun little
Yes.
questions here. Because
okay.
we have a couple rapid fires, but one of them is, do you have a restaurant in St. Louis? And both of you can answer these that you absolutely cannot stop going to.
She goes to where they spoil her.
Well, there is a place next to my house, is Irish Pub. They have the best burger and best Reuben.
She likes her Reubens.
When I'm by myself, I just go there, have a beer with the Reuben or burger. And they
And just
love-
hang out at the bar.
She
That's
likes going
balance,
where
right?
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, any place I go, I hang out at the bar because either I know the bartender or I know the owners. And I sit at the bar, talk to people around me, become friend with them, and then chit chat, talking about food.
Do you have a certain comfort food dish that's your go-to dish?
I make this stew with eggplant, either lamb or beef.
And your apricot chicken. Mom.
And then I make apricot chicken. So many
Right.
people it still talks about and they love it. Her husband and her, they just love that dish.
She used to work at a donut shop in New York when she was partying at Studio 54. She would work at a late night donut shop. And so she was a big glazed old fashioned fan. And they used to wrap me up and take me to John's Donuts downtown. So I was one of those early babies that would come wrapped up and dad would go and pick up the donuts there. So she was always a glazed old fashioned fan.
That's
She
great.
loves
Yeah.
Reubens. She knows food. She wants like fresh made because they used to have roast beef, corned beef,
Yeah.
brisket every day. They would
Every
make it at the little kitchen. So when she
Mhm.
finds people that make these things like
And we
daily,
didn't have grill. We had one convection oven. We made everything
Everything.
in there. My late husband made this gadget. There was a square metal.
he would
and it
hang
was-
kebabs
and
from
we
a
could
convention
put
of
the
it.
kebabs in it with the wooden. Each of them carry 12 chicken kebab or beef kebab. People were in the line. Every 10 minutes, I would take them out, put them in the
This is where the
So that
OG lamb sauce came from.
That's
It
wild.
started in the
Yeah.
early 80s
Everything
at the
in
little
there,
kitchen.
everything. We didn't have no grill. We didn't have no stove.
No hood.
No hood. I would make the rice on the warmer, and then we had the toaster. We would make toasted bagel with cream cheese, with bacon or sausage and stuff like that.
So
every
those are your
morning.
tools for the kitchen, right? You don't need
Mhm.
anything fancy.
No, right now I have
An air fryer. Yeah.
I have
yeah.
convection oven,
Can you
but
imagine
I
making
run because
kebabs?
I'm by myself. I make kebab in it. I make chicken in it. I make everything in that air fryer. Salmon, best salmon you can make it in there. It's really good.
She's fancy now.
And
Late at night, is there a sinful indulgence? Like, are you a Cheetos gal, or is it all donuts, or is there anything that you just like? I can tear into a bag of potato chips every once
You
in
like
a while.
burgers. You
Guilty
like
pleasure.
Burger King.
I
There we go.
I love burger.
She loves Whoppers.
She's a Whopper gal.
Because when I was in New York, I didn't have that much money and I couldn't speak English. And I would go to Burger King and I would look at the number. I would say number 2, number 3, and then I would come home. Everybody say, "What did you eat?" I said, "I ate at King Burger." What did you eat? I don't know. I chose number 2. You know, stuff like that I ate. And New York's hot dog was my most favorite thing.
Central Park hot dogs.
Because
She's a
for
big
6
fan of.
months when it was hostage situation, I was kicked out from school, from my part-time job and my apartment. So I had no place to go. So I stayed with my friend's house and they couldn't afford to feed me. So I would go out, get 25 cents hot dog, 25 cents pizza. That's how I lived 6 months.
Wow.
Then I got a job. After that, somebody hired me paid me under the table.
Wow, that's just a great story, and it's so typical of chefs. I know a lot of them that will end up in a fast food line or late at night at Taco Bell. The more you ask, there's no chef that I think doesn't like some sort of fast food.
We used to go late at night with my employees to get burger or taco after we drink.
And live music. She
live
loves
music,
to.
yeah.
She loves the live music.
Then we would go out, have like 3 o'clock in the morning, we would go have burger or hot dog, tacos, yeah.
Fancy cuisine.
We'll be right back.
On May 15th, the South Grand Cocktail Crawl returns to the South Grand Business District, stretching from Arsenal to Humphrey from 4 to 8 p.m. Explore the neighborhood as you sample cocktail specials from local businesses and discover what makes each spot unique. Plan your route and find more details at southgrand.org/events. And now, back to the show.
Your hard work has been instilled in your daughter. I was just looking at some of the stuff that you're doing coming up. It's so funny. I haven't shared this with Cheryl, but if I'm ever looking for something to write about, a little tidbit or something, just punch up the gin room in Salve Osteria, because you've got some cool event that's cooler than the last one you did. You're doing Mother's Day brunch and dinner. You've got several other brunches planned throughout the year. And there's a chartreuse celebration. I just thought that was so different and unusual because most people don't know about chartreuse, just like they didn't know about gin. Just talk briefly about that. I just thought that
We
was
have
interesting.
a beautiful 1605 celebration day, which is a national celebration of chartreuse. And we'll be having a celebration. We actually put chartreuse on nitro. We were actually one of the 3 in the United States that were given permission by the monks to allow to have chartreuse on tap. And they actually sent us a tap handle that was made from maple wood from the mountains there. So that was a really big deal that happened probably about 6-7 years ago.
One last question for you, Hamishe. If somebody wants to open a restaurant in 2025, what would you tell them?
Don't open it. But yeah, I usually, it happened before friend of ours asked me my opinion. They were going to open a restaurant. I gave them advice that if you want to open a restaurant, first work in a restaurant that's successful as a manager to learn inside out of the business, and then open the restaurant. And please don't borrow money to open a restaurant because that's going to kill you. San Luis is a foodie town. People knows what good food is. And you cannot just assume, oh, because I'm famous or my restaurant is beautiful, people are going to come and eat. No, if you don't have good food,
Yeah.
People have to say wow to your food to come back next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The proof is in the pudding statement. And it's true. You have to work in a restaurant. And ideally, I always say, get behind the double doors. Work
Yeah.
as a cook, work as an expediter, work
Right.
as a server,
Everything.
somebody that's in that kitchen, because there's a whole different world
It
behind
is.
those double doors
you
that
don't
people
know-
don't realize.
Right. If
That's
you
what
don't
she's
do
taught.
that, you're not going to make it.
You
You're not
can't
gonna
do
make it.
everything in that restaurant.
And if you're chef, you need to taste your food. Every time, every day, every minute, when food goes out, you need to taste that food to make sure that's what you wanted to give to people.
It's the most basic of advice and so true. I know chefs that taste every dish. They somehow
Not all the
stick a
chefs.
spoon in every dish.
Not all the chefs.
I know they should, though.
They
is,
should.
is my point. So, yeah, it's a wonderful business. It's very, very attractive, but boy, it's
But you
hard. And
need-
it makes
It'll
the,
kill you if
the-
it's
the-
not
the-
deep in your veins.
the good folks like you make it look easy, and it's anything but, as we all know.
Anything but.
Hey, I think that's a good place to wrap it up with that piece of sound wisdom from Hamishe. Thank you guys for coming.
It's
It
our
is an honor,
pleasure.
and thank you for bringing treats too. That's just wonderful.
And happy Mother's Day.
Oh yes, happy Mother's Day,
Thank you.
and I guess that's it for this edition of Arch Eats.
Thank you. And I'm lucky to have Natasha as my daughter. I'm so proud of her. So proud of her.
Aw.
Yes, seriously. I mean,
She likes to make us cry here.
no, that's true. That's true. I'm honored
Well, thank
to
you
be
for
her
being part
mother.
of St. Louis for so long. I think you've been integral to this city.
I love St. Louis.
Hey, thanks for being part of this table. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Be sure to follow us and share with your friends. And we always provide links in the show notes for everything you heard about today. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow along on Instagram at St. Louis Mag. And feel free to give us a follow personally at George Mahey and Cheryl A. Bear.
If you loved what you heard, show us some love by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And if you're hungry for even more content, you can subscribe to our dining newsletters for the freshest coverage on the local restaurant and culinary scene.
Best dishes, and see you next time.